Hey folks, back with another video. Let's dive into what stories got my attention today. An update on Ethiopia's situation. The UN officials told AFP that there was still no access on Friday despite a deal allowing quote unquote unimpeded humanitarian access to government controlled areas. The BBC managed to speak on Thursday to people in Mekelle who said, quote, fighting is still going on in places near the city, end quote. The Tigrayan People's Liberation Front has said it is still fighting. Ethiopia's minister in charge of democratization, Zadig Abraha, dismissed this saying, quote, there is no war, end quote. Saviano Abreu, spokesman for the UN's Humanitarian Coordination Office, told AFP, quote, we have reports of fighting still going on in many parts of Tigray. This is concerning and it's a complex situation for us, end quote. As of Friday, security assessments were still being conducted and three UN officials told AFP that aid was not expected to arrive before next week. Among those in need of urgent aid are some 96,000 refugees who fled persecution and compulsory military service in neighboring Eritrea and have been living in camps in Tigray. Their camps are believed to be running out of food. There are also unconfirmed reports of attacks and abductions. Anne Incontre, head of the UN Refugee Agency in Ethiopia, said it was urgently trying to get food, medicines, and other supplies to the refugees and assess quote unquote very grim reports on the security of the camps. Now, I will keep an eye out on Ethiopia and see if these pockets of fight in the Tigray region escalate to something bigger. And I will also be keeping an eye on the international aid efforts and how they go. But so far, it seems that everything is going okay, with an understandable hiccup, as there are certain logistical realities that make it not possible for things to happen instantaneously, but they take their time. Moving on into another update on the Australian Army's horrific action in Afghanistan. An effort has been promised by Prime Minister Scott Morrison, with the public warned beforehand of quote unquote gut wrenching findings, and the Chief of the Defence Force, Lieutenant General Angus Campbell, has pledged to fully implement Brereton's recommendations. Morrison announced that a special prosecutor working with a team of federal police would work on turning the judge's material into evidence that can be presented to a court. That some of his information came after promises of immunity may complicate the process. Lieutenant General Campbell has given 13 of the accused who are still serving a 2-week show cause notice why they should not be dismissed. He also disbanded one of the 4 SAS squadrons. Yet already Morrison is backpedaling or going slow on some of Brereton's recommendations. Notably, he has rescinded Lieutenant General Campbell's implementation of one that a unit citation for meritorious conduct be removed from some 3,000 soldiers who served in the Special Operations Group. A campaign by aggrieved veterans through tabloid newspaper and Sydney radio shock jock Alan Jones convinced Morrison this was unfair collective punishment for the actions of a few. Now, critiques by the Chinese and the Russian foreign ministries that the revealed war crimes show Australia's hypocrisy on human rights this week had Morrison rising to the bait. He demanded an apology from Beijing for a foreign ministry's official's tweet using a photo montage of an Australian about to cut the throat of an Afghan child. Pushed aside in this rush of indignation on behalf of Australian veterans have been the families of the Afghan victims. Justice Brereton recommended that where there was credible information of an identified or identifiable Afghan national having been unlawfully killed, Australia should compensate that person's family without waiting for criminal liability to be established. He pointed out that such legal proceedings could take several years more on top of 8 or more years for the alleged killings to come to light. Morrison has said compensation would be paid to bereaved Afghan families, but this was, quote, not currently being considered, end quote, by the government. A further contradiction is the Morrison's government is now prosecuting a former military lawyer, Major William McBride, for disclosing certain war crimes to the Australian Broadcasting Corporation 3 years ago after failing to get his reports acted upon within the military and defense department. He faces potentially a long term for revealing official secrets. Bredesen was assigned his task in 2016 after then Commander of Australia's Special Forces had asked an Australian National University sociologist, Samantha Crumpwaite, to look into rumors and media reports about wrongdoings in the field. She reported accounts of casual killings of non-combatants, including so-called quote-unquote squatters or civilians running away when special forces helicoptered in. However, all in all, while I will not deny that the West is not perfect, obviously the West has its fair share of imperfection. The difference between the West and the rest of the world is the fact that the West can at least acknowledge that they have done something wrong and they are willing to step up to actually doing the right thing when they can, and they are, and I believe that we should push them further whenever they waver, something that we in the West have not only the right and freedom but also, I would say, a moral duty. And hopefully in coming time I think Australia will, if not do perfect justice, it will get as close to doing perfect justice as they can. Unlike China, and let's look into how the situation in China is and how they commit tyranny. Siragul Sotbe, a medical doctor and educator who now lives in Sweden, recently published a book in which she detailed her ordeal, including witnessing beatings, alleged sexual abuse, and forced sterilization. In a recent interview with Al Jazeera, she shed more light on other indignities to which the Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities were subjected, including the consumption of pork, a meat that is strictly prohibited in Islam. Testimonies from Sotbe and others provide an indication of how China has sought to crack down in Xinjiang by taking aim at the cultural and religious beliefs of the mostly Muslim ethnic minorities, implementing widespread surveillance from about 2017, opening a network of camps it has justified as necessary to counter quote-unquote extremism. Now, Beijing has defended its policies in the region, saying the approach is needed to fight the quote, three evils of extremism, separatism, and terrorism, end quote, following deadly riots in the regional capital Urumqi in 2009. It has denied existence of the re-education camps in which the United Nations has said more than 1 million people have been held, instead saying it operates a vocational centers that allow it to quote-unquote retrain the Uyghur population and teach them new skills. Arsalan Hedayat, a Turkey-based Uyghur rights activist and Secretary General of the Uyghur Revival Association, told Al Jazeera that whether it is breeding pigs or eating pork and drinking alcohol, the Chinese government is attempting to quote-unquote normalize prohibited practices for Muslims in Xinjiang. In 2018, the Reuters news agency also reported on an quote-unquote anti-halal campaign in Urumqi, quote, to stop Islam penetrating secular life and fueling extremism, end quote. Speaking to Al Jazeera about China's overall policy towards Uyghur, Inar Tanjin, a China affairs expert based in Beijing, said that the Chinese government quote-unquote feels strongly that many of Xinjiang's residents have been quote-unquote radicalized in recent years. With regards to the specific allegations of forcing Muslims to eat pork, Tanjin said that he did not know whether the information was quote-unquote factual, but if it was taking place, it was not the result of quote, central government policy, end quote. The documents seen by Al Jazeera are among a cache that has also detailed the alleged sterilization programs reported by AP. In a huge bureaucracy like that of China, there may be, quote unquote, some people who might commit abuses, he said. The Chinese government has had little to say about the issue, although various state-controlled publications questioned the credibility of both Sutbeh and Daoud when they made allegations of other abuses in Xinjiang. Beijing has also accused Zenz, the German anthropologist, of, quote, fabricating facts and falsifying data, end quote, and pointed to his links to, quote unquote, right wing factions of the US government. China observes also raised questions about his, quote unquote, sudden expertise on Xinjiang and the Uyghurs. Al Jazeera has sought an official response from China's foreign ministry but has yet to receive a reply. It has also requested comment from the Institute for Human Rights at China University of Political Science and Law, but it had yet to respond at the time of publication. By the way, the Uyghur Muslims are not the only group of people persecuted in China. In fact, all of Chinese people are effectively persecuted in ways that are horrifying, and one of them, the recently implemented social credit system that Beijing has basically shoved down the throats of every Chinese person. I think we in the West must expose the tyranny of Beijing and push for the regime to apologize to their own people for doing such evil. Moving on to Thailand. Bangkok has been gripped by a rubber duck frenzy since protesters used giant inflatables to shield themselves from water cannon spray last month. When police mounted a crackdown on a November rally deploying tear gas and water cannon outside Parliament, footage of demonstrators hiding behind giant ducks went viral. Within days, duck-themed paraphernalia became a staple among street vendors at protests, the birds featuring on everything from hats to hair clips. The toy's emergence as a protest symbol happened by accident. Protesters had intended to float an inflatable duck down Bangkok's Chao Phraya River behind Parliament as lawmakers inside debated proposals for constitutional change. But since their redeployment as a protection from tear gas and chemical-laced water fired from cannons, some demonstrators say the ducks have helped the protester movement win the PR war with the authorities. Now, rubber ducks have been used as a symbol of protest in other countries like in Russia in 2017 and Brazil in 2016, to name a few. But it seems that the protests in Thailand are strong. However, there seems to be no new strong reaction vis-a-vis the decision by the court that are regarding Prime Minister Prayut as far as his regarding whether it was constitutional for him to stay in the military house. Moving on into the Turkish and French relations, and in particular Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He said on Friday that he hoped France would soon get rid of President Emmanuel Macron, describing him as a burden on France, which was going through dangerous times. I don't know, I see some projections from President Erdogan as far as that particular general gist is concerned. Anyhow, ties between Turkey and France, both NATO members, have been particularly tense in recent months over policy differences on Syria and the publishing of caricatures about the Prophet Muhammad in France. Ankara and Paris have also traded accusations over their roles in Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. France says Turkey fueled fighting between Armenia and Azerbaijan over Nagorno-Karabakh, internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan but populated by ethnic Armenians. President Erdogan is, in my opinion, trying to position he has been trying to position himself as some sort of a voice for the Muslims all over the world. But I believe it also is in part due to the fact that Turkey is financially imploding, and he has targeted President Macron as a way to divert attention of the people from the brewing crisis. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you like the video, then hit that like button and hit that subscribe button for future updates. Write in the comment sections your thoughts, criticism, and anything I might have missed. As usual, the links to the stories are in the description box below, and I will see you in the next video.